The moment I saw the empty velvet box on my grandmother's antique dresser, my heart stopped. I ran my fingers across the faded cushion where her ring had rested for decades, hoping somehow I was wrong. But the indent told the truth. It was gone. My name is Simone, and that ring was supposed to be mine. Not because I'm greedy or materialistic, but because Grandma had promised it to me before she passed. For my strong-willed granddaughter, she'd said, sliding it off her finger and placing it in my palm just weeks before cancer took her. Someone who knows the value of standing up for what's right, I stormed downstairs, clutching the empty box. Mom was in the kitchen, arranging appetizers for our monthly family dinner like nothing was wrong. "Where's Grandma's ring?" I demanded. She barely looked up from her cheese plate. "Oh, honey, we had to sell it. These things happen." "These things happen? That ring was mine. Grandma gave it to me." Dad walked in, loosening his tie. "Keep your voice down, Simone. What's done is done." "What do you mean, done? When? Why wasn't I consulted?" Mum sighed, finally meeting my eyes. Serenity needed help with some financial troubles. The ring fetched a good price. Serenity? I spun around to see my younger sister frozen in the doorway, designer purse hanging from her arm. "What kind of trouble?" "It's not a big deal," Serenity mumbled, examining her manicured nails. "Just some credit card stuff. They helped me out. With Grandma's ring, the one thing she specifically left to me." "You're being dramatic," Dad cut in. "It was just collecting dust in that box anyway." I felt like I'd been slapped. That ring was the last thing she gave me. It meant something. "Well, helping your sister means something too," Mom snapped. "Family takes care of family." Funny how that only applies when it's Serenity needing help. I turned and ran upstairs before they could see my tears, slamming the door to Grandma's old room. As I sank onto her bed, something caught my eye, a folder peeking out from under the dresser, yellowed with age. I pulled it out, recognizing Grandma's handwriting on the label, Lewis Family Records. Inside were documents I'd never seen before, bank statements, letters, legal papers. As I started reading, my hands began to shake. This wasn't just about a ring anymore. What I held was evidence of something much darker, something my parents had been hiding for years. And suddenly, I knew exactly what Grandma meant about standing up for what's right. The documents kept me up all night. Bank transfers, property deeds, and letters revealed a pattern of fraud that made my stomach turn. My parents hadn't just managed Grandma's estate after she died. They'd been siphoning money from it for years before that, while she was sick and vulnerable. I needed someone who could make sense of this, someone who wouldn't brush it off like my family always did. That's how I found myself sitting across from Zayden Parker at the local coffee shop the next morning, spreading the papers across the table. "These transfers," he said, pointing to a series of numbers, "they're structured to avoid detection. Classic money laundering technique." His journalist instincts were already kicking in. "So, I'm not crazy. This is real. Very real." Zayden leaned back, running a hand through his dark hair. "And if what you're telling me about the ring is true, they're still at it, using your grandmother's assets like their personal piggy bank." My phone buzzed, another text from Serenity. "Where are you? Mum's freaking out about you missing breakfast." I ignored it. "What can I do? Legally? You could file a complaint, but with these documents..." Zayden's eyes lit up. "This could be a story, a big one, the kind that makes people pay attention." "You mean publish it? Your family's well known in this town, respected. People should know what's behind that respect." My coffee grew cold as we talked. The more Zayden explained, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. "There's something else," I said, pulling out the last document. "This letter, Grandma wrote it 3 months before she died." Zayden read it, his eyebrows rising. She knew. She was planning to confront them. But she never got the chance. My voice cracked. She got too sick too fast. "Simone," he said softly, "this isn't just about fraud. This is about elder abuse." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I remembered Grandma's confusion in those final months, how Mom and Dad had insisted on handling all her paperwork. To make things easier, they'd said. My phone buzzed again, Dad this time. Where are those old files from your grandmother's room? I looked at Zayden, my heart racing. They know. Then we need to move fast. He gathered the documents carefully. I'll make copies. Keep the originals somewhere safe. Are you sure you want to do this? I thought about Grandma's ring, probably already sold to some pawn shop. About her letter, written in shaking handwriting, trying to expose the truth. Yes, I said. It's time everyone knew who my family really is. Back home, I played it cool. The files were safely hidden at Zayden's office, but my parents' suspicious glances made my skin crawl. I found Serenity sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone and showing off her new designer watch. Like it? She held up her wrist. Dad got me an early birthday present. I stared at the watch, probably worth twice what Grandma's ring had been. Must be nice. Don't be jealous. Maybe if you weren't so uptight about everything, they'd spoil you too. Before I could respond, I heard Mum's voice from Dad's study. I crept closer to the partially open door. The insurance company called again. Mum whispered urgently. They're asking questions about Mother's policies. I told you I'd handle it, Dad snapped, just like I handled that nosy social worker last year. My blood ran cold. Social worker? That was new. And what about Amanda? Mom asked. She's been calling about her share of the inheritance. I froze. Aunt Amanda, Mum's sister who'd been mysteriously cut out of the will. The same aunt who'd stopped speaking to us after Grandma died. She signed away her rights, Dad said. We have the paperwork. But if she remembers, she won't, trust me. I'd heard enough. I slipped away and called Zayden. Your Aunt Amanda, he said after I explained. We need to talk to her. She lives 3 hours away. I can drive there tomorrow. Be careful. If your parents catch on, they won't. I watched Serenity preen in her phone's camera, showing off her watch on Instagram. They're too busy keeping up appearances. That night, I couldn't sleep. I dug out my old photo albums, finding a picture of Grandma and Aunt Amanda at my high school graduation. They were both smiling, arms linked. 6 months later, they'd had a falling out, or so Mom had claimed. My phone lit up with a text from Zayden. Found something. Your aunt filed a complaint about elder abuse 2 years ago. It was buried. The pieces were falling into place. Aunt Amanda hadn't abandoned Grandma. She'd tried to protect her. Another text buzzed through. Stories taking shape, but we need more. Your aunt's testimony could break this wide open. I looked at the photo again, at Grandma's genuine smile. Tomorrow, I'd drive to Aunt Amanda's. Tomorrow, I'd learn the truth about what my parents had done. But as I set my alarm, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Dad's voice carried through the door. We need to deal with this situation, now. I left before dawn, but not before overhearing more than my parents intended. Through my bedroom wall, their whispered argument carried clearly. She's been asking questions, Mom hissed, just like Amanda did. Then we handle it the same way, Dad replied. The accounts are almost cleared. Once they're moved offshore. And what about Serenity? She's spending too much drawing attention. Let me worry about that. I slipped out while they were still arguing. 3 hours later, I pulled up to Aunt Amanda's modest house, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. She opened the door before I could knock. I wondered when you'd show up, she said, her face older than I remembered. Come in before someone sees you. Her living room was cluttered with boxes of documents. She caught me looking. Evidence, she explained. Been collecting it for 2 years. Not that anyone would listen. I'm listening now. She sank into an armchair. Your grandmother knew something was wrong. The missing money, the changed passwords. She asked me to help investigate. What did you find? Enough to send your parents to prison. She pulled out a laptop. Watch this. The video showed Grandma, frail but clear-eyed, recording a statement. If anything happens to me, she said, Evan and Kayla are responsible. They've been stealing from me, forging my signature. Amanda has proof. Dad said you signed away your inheritance rights, I whispered. Amanda laughed bitterly. They forged that too. When I threatened to expose them, they had a lawyer friend draft up fake documents showing I was trying to exploit your grandmother. Nearly lost my nursing license. My phone buzzed. Zayden. Where are you? Your parents are at the paper, threatening legal action. They're getting desperate, Amanda said, reading over my shoulder. Good. Desperate people make mistakes. Another text came through, this time from Serenity. Dad's acting weird. He's clearing out his office. What's going on? They're planning to run, I realized. They're going to take everything and disappear. Not this time. Amanda handed me a USB drive. Everything's here. Bank records, forged documents, Grandma's video testimony, even proof they bribed that social worker to look the other way. My phone rang. Zayden again. Simone, they're moving fast. If we're going to stop them, it has to be now. I looked at Amanda, at the years of pain in her eyes. Send everything, I said. Run the story. Once we do this, Zayden warned, there's no going back. I thought of Grandma's ring, of Serenity's expensive watch, of all the lies. Good, it's time for the truth. I found Serenity in her favorite coffee shop, frantically tapping on her phone. Her designer watch caught the light as she looked up. What's the emergency? She asked. And why aren't Mum and Dad answering their phones? I slid Grandma's video across the table on my tablet. Because of this, her perfectly manicured nails froze mid-text as Grandma's voice filled her earbuds. I watched her face change, confusion, shock, horror. By the time the video ended, her makeup was streaked with tears. This can't be real, she whispered. They wouldn't. Remember that social worker who visited Grandma? The one who suddenly decided everything was fine? Dad said she was just causing trouble. Dad paid her off. I pulled out the bank statements. Just like he's been paying off your credit cards. Where did you think all that money was coming from? Her hand started shaking. But they said Grandma wanted to help me. That's why they sold the ring. They sold it because they're running out of money. Grandma's money. The money they stole while she was dying. Serenity's phone buzzed, Dad's face lighting up the screen. She stared at it, then declined the call. All those times they made me feel special, she said, voice cracking. The gifts, the money. I was just their cover story, wasn't I? Their perfect, spoiled daughter who needed expensive things. They used both of us, I said. Me as the difficult one, you as the golden child. Made us too busy fighting each other to see what they were doing. Her phone buzzed again. Mom this time. She turned it off. What happens now? Zayden's running the story tomorrow. Aunt Amanda's evidence, Grandma's video, everything. Aunt Amanda? Serenity's eyes widened. Mom said she tried to steal from Grandma. Another lie. She was trying to protect her. Serenity pulled off the watch, staring at it like it was poisonous. I want to help. What? I want to help expose them. I have texts, emails, times they asked me to sign things I didn't read, bank accounts they opened in my name. I hadn't expected this. Are you sure? Once this goes public, they used Grandma's death to fund my shopping addiction. Her voice hardened. They made me an accomplice. I want to make it right. My phone lit up. Zayden. Story's ready. Last chance to back out. I showed Serenity the message. She grabbed my phone and typed, "Run it, and add my statement too." For the first time since finding that empty ring box, I felt hope. Maybe some things really were thicker than water, like truth and justice, and the chance to make things right. The newsroom buzzed with tension as Zayden made final edits to the story. Serenity sat beside me, dictating her statement to another reporter. They had me sign papers for new credit cards last Christmas, she said. Told me they were holiday gift receipts. I didn't even read them. And the timing coincides perfectly with the last major withdrawal from your grandmother's account, Zayden noted, typing furiously. My phone erupted with messages. Dad first. Whatever you think you're doing, stop now. Then Mom. We can talk about this, sweetheart. Don't do anything rash. They know, I told Zayden. Good. He turned his screen toward me. Because we're going live in 30 minutes. Serenity gripped my hand. I found something else. She pulled up her email. Remember that beach house they bought last year? Look at the signature on the deed. I squinted at the document. That's Grandma's signature. But she was already dead for 3 months, Serenity finished. They forged it. Zayden snatched the phone. This is better than the ring story. This is felony fraud. The newsroom door burst open. Dad stood there, face red, Mum right behind him. Serenity, Simone, in the car. Now. Dad's voice shook with rage. No. Serenity stood up, shoulders straight. I'm done covering for you. Covering? Mom laughed nervously, eyeing the reporters. Sweetie, you're confused. Like Aunt Amanda was confused. I pulled out my phone, playing Grandma's video. Her voice filled the room. They've been stealing from me. Mom's face went white. Dad lunged for the phone, but Zayden stepped between us. Touch them, he said quietly, and I add assault to tomorrow's headline. You ungrateful brats, Dad spat. After everything we've done. Everything you've stolen, you mean? Serenity's voice cracked. Did you even try to find my ring buyer? Or was that just another lie? The story runs in 20 minutes, Zayden announced, with or without your comment. Dad grabbed Mom's arm. We're leaving. When you two come to your senses. You'll what? I stood beside Serenity. Forge more documents, bribe more officials, steal from more dying relatives. They backed toward the door, Mom already crying, Dad's face a mask of fury. This isn't over, he threatened. You're right, Serenity called after them. It's just beginning. We watched through the window as they sped away in their luxury car, probably bought with Grandma's money too. Ready? Zayden asked, finger hovering over the publish button. Serenity squeezed my hand. I thought of Grandma's ring, of her voice on the video, of all the lies. Do it. The story exploded overnight. By morning, police cars surrounded our house, and reporters crowded the front lawn. Mom and Dad hadn't come home. Their accounts are frozen, Aunt Amanda reported over the phone, and the DA's office is reviewing the evidence. Serenity and I watched from the kitchen as officers carried boxes from Dad's study. One held up a familiar velvet box. My ring? I asked the detective. She shook her head. Empty, but we found receipts from a pawn shop downtown, along with... She hesitated. Along with what? Documentation of other stolen items. Your grandmother's jewelry, antiques, even her wedding ring. All sold over the past 3 years. Serenity sank into a chair. While she was sick, they were stealing from her while she was dying. My phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. Mum's voice came through, shaky and desperate. We did it for the family, she sobbed. Your father's business was failing. We were going to lose everything. Where are you? You have to help us. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Like you told everyone Aunt Amanda was lying, or that Grandma was confused. I'm your mother, and she was your mother, but that didn't stop you, did it? The detective gestured for my phone. I handed it over, hearing Mom's pleas cut off as they traced the call. An hour later, they found them at a motel near the airport. The arrest was all over the local news. Prominent local couple caught fleeing fraud charges. Mrs. Lewis, a reporter called out as they led Mom to the police car. Did you really forge your dead mother's signature to buy a beach house? Dad walked behind her in handcuffs, still trying to look dignified. No comment. Our daughters are confused. We found the offshore accounts, the detective cut in, and your mother-in-law's video testimony. That broke him. It wasn't supposed to be like this, he shouted. We deserved that money. After all we did for her. After all you stole from her, I called out. They both turned, seeing Serenity and me standing with Aunt Amanda. You did this, Mum whispered. Our own children. No, Serenity stepped forward. You did this. Every lie, every theft, every betrayal. That's on you. They drove away in separate police cars. Aunt Amanda hugged us both as reporters shouted questions. "Your grandmother would be proud," she said. "She always said the truth would come out eventually." I watched the police cars disappear around the corner, carrying away the parents I thought I knew. "The truth's out," I said, "but this isn't over yet." Serenity squeezed my hand. "No, now comes the hard part." The pawn shop owner laid the ring on the counter. Soon as I saw the news, I knew I had to call. Couldn't sell it, didn't feel right. I picked up Grandma's ring, its familiar weight bringing tears to my eyes. Serenity hugged me from behind. "How much?" she asked him. "No charge. What your parents did. Just take it." Outside, Zayden waited with Aunt Amanda. The courthouse loomed across the street, where Mum and Dad's sentencing would start in an hour. "Ready?" Aunt Amanda asked. "Almost." I crossed the street to the small park where Grandma used to take us. Her favorite bench still sat under the oak tree. I slid the ring back onto my finger where it belonged. "They took a plea deal," Zayden said, checking his phone. "The DA's office is recommending 7 years. The money's mostly gone," Aunt Amanda added, "but the beach house sale should cover some of the restitution." Serenity sat beside me, her designer watch replaced by a simple band. I found more receipts, things they sold from Grandma's house that we thought were lost in the move. "We can track them down," Zayden offered. "Write a follow-up story." I shook my head. No more stories. No more digging up the past. The courthouse doors opened. Other victims of their schemes filed in. Business partners they'd cheated, elderly friends they'd scammed. Mum and Dad had built their whole life on lies. "What do we do now?" Serenity asked. "We rebuild. The right way." Inside, we sat with Aunt Amanda as the judge delivered the sentence. Mum cried. Dad stared straight ahead. Neither looked at us. "The defendant's actions represent a profound breach of trust," the judge said. "Not only against their own mother, but against their children, who showed remarkable courage in exposing these crimes." Afterward, on the courthouse steps, reporters asked how it felt. "Like waking up," I said. "Like finally seeing clearly." That evening, we gathered at Aunt Amanda's house. Me, Serenity, Zayden, and Amanda. The boxes of evidence were gone, replaced by old photo albums and Grandma's rescued keepsakes. "Found this in the back of her diary," Amanda said, handing me a note. "She wrote it for you." Grandma's handwriting flowed across the page. "To my Simone, the ring is just metal and stone. The real inheritance is knowing right from wrong and having the strength to stand for it. Love always." Serenity read over my shoulder. "She knew you'd do the right thing." "We did the right thing," I corrected, taking her hand, "together." Through the window, the sun set on our old life of lies and secrets. But here, in this room full of truth and hard-won peace, a new day was already beginning.